Good afternoon and welcome to the Supplier Management with Market Hub Spotlight webinar brought to you by TraceGains. My name is Matthew Passananti and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at TraceGains. Together with our software sales engineer, Ruben Galbraith, we'll provide you with an introduction to Supplier Management with Market Hub. Before we do that, we'll take a minute to introduce you to TraceGains. We offer a cloud-based supplier relationship management platform that helps food, supplement, and consumer packaged goods companies deliver on their brand promise. We have people in quality and regulatory compliance, procurement, and R&D that rely on TraceGains to help them bring quality products to market faster. With our solutions, we turn static documents into digital records, we track the information exchange, and we automate the associated workflow and collaboration. On average, our customers find that about 75% of their suppliers are already on TraceGains Network. This allows them to connect with their suppliers and immediately begin collaborating. With instant information sharing and visibility throughout the supply chain, companies can manage risk, they can grow their business, and they can go faster. We recently surveyed a customer base of brand manufacturers and suppliers, and we found that the majority of challenges they face are all derived from the same exact problem. As it turns out, about 80% of the data that's required to run their business resides within the global supply chain and outside the four walls of their company. We established Supplier Management and Market Hub to help solve common challenges that our customers were facing as they qualify, connect to, and collaborate with different suppliers to source the right items. Here are some of the most common challenges we see in the market today. First, manufacturers and brand owners are required to collect and review massive amounts of documentation and data to validate suppliers and their items in response to regulations such as FSMA, GFSI, and others. Next, the qualification process for suppliers and items is very labor-intensive, and it's built upon these outmoded tools like emails and spreadsheets. When forms are collected, they're filed away, and that data cannot be mined for business insights. We know a lot of buyers who have a very hard time finding the right items, and that just increases the time to market. Whether they're ordering samples, securing documents, or following up with questions and answers, they're doing it over the phone or through email, and it's terribly inefficient. And finally, there's a lot of disconnects between quality, procurement, and regulatory departments, and that all serves to cause delays for new product development. So if you're with us today, maybe you too are experiencing one or more of these problems. Let's start by highlighting some of the most beneficial features of Supplier Management with Market Hub from TraceGains. We'll begin by showing how Supplier Management with Market Hub can provide a robust sourcing directory for items, packages, and service providers. Next, we'll show how TraceGains Supplier Management elevates supplier qualification by streamlining the approval and onboarding processes. Once your connections are made through TraceGains Network, manufacturers and brand owners can begin to procure new items and ingredients, and they can immediately begin to collect required quality and regulatory documentation from their suppliers. Because everything's in a digitized format, it's very easy to distribute documents for approval, track changes, or easily prepare for audits. Let's begin by talking about the inefficient sourcing in the early stages of collaboration. We know how it works today. You need new ingredients from a new supplier, so you check supplier catalogs. You can't find what you need there, so you hop on the internet and you start searching for suppliers. Now you're just sifting through pages and pages of results. There's a trade show in your area, so you decide to go and spend 3 days pounding the showroom floor and networking with different suppliers, only to come home with stacks of business cards and covered in chicken scratch. It's a cumbersome process with a bunch of dead ends. Now, whether you're creating new recipes or you're looking for alternative suppliers, Market Hub makes it easy. With more than 30,000 supplier locations, 150,000 items, and more than 1.5 million documents, Market Hub allows you to search everything by category and drill down to exactly what you're looking for. What you will find are not only the ingredients, but also the required supply chain documents that support them. This can help you determine if your supplier is capable of meeting your needs before you begin collaborating with them. In many organizations, simply collaborating within your business and across departments is hard enough. It only gets harder when you work with supply chain partners. Leveraging TraceGains Network allows users to easily connect with suppliers and obtain the necessary documents that are instantly delivered from a vast supplier document repository. On average, our customers find that about 75% of their suppliers are already in TraceGains Network, allowing them to immediately connect and collaborate. Once you've located your items in Market Hub, you're ready to begin the data collection and qualification process of vetting the applicable suppliers. This is where your success often relies upon the supply chain to provide you with the necessary information. You could be looking into fine-grained details of allergens that might be present. If ingredients are kosher, you'll need a kosher certificate. And we all know the headaches that arise in not having the information right at your fingertips. If you take an honest assessment of your environment, you may see that you're using some outmoded tools, maybe Word, Excel, you use phone calls and leave voicemails, you track paper files and you send emails and faxes. And I'm betting you that you've got a few post-it notes with detailed reminders somewhere in your environment. So if you're sitting there thinking, boy, I need to follow up on this expired document and I hope I don't get an audit this week, then you may be a prime candidate to connect with TraceGains on Supplier Management with Market Hub. With TraceGains, we'll show you how to replace these steps with Market Hub. You'll utilize post-once technology to ensure comprehensive distribution of all the latest specs, and you'll utilize a centralized online library for all your supplier documents. Finally, you'll gain insight into supplier risk and be able to consider suppliers based upon geographic location. Many companies operate with departments who have silos of data across R&D, regulatory, and purchasing departments, and this just serves to delay new product development. With Supplier Management and Market Hub through TraceGains, this process is revolutionized. When you find the right vendor and you begin obtaining the right documents, you still need to ensure that you manage them correctly. With TraceGains, we digitize everything. We turn your documents into digital records, and we store everything in one place. You can then extract the relevant data and arrange it into useful performance dashboards and reports. Best of all, everything can be instantly accessed by anyone on your team, from any place, and from any device. The combination of Supplier Management and Market Hub speeds up the process of supplier qualification, item review, and document management that leads to faster time to market. When you have the relevant information at your fingertips, supplier risk analysis is much easier. Your users are now free to choose between standard or custom dashboards for allergen, organic, country of origin, nutrition, risk analysis, and other mission-critical data. And the system generates automatic alerts when supplier documents are missing, incomplete, or about to expire. TraceGains has developed Supplier Management and Market Hub to ensure that you can bring better products to market faster. Let's take a moment to look at the way Supplier Management and Market Hub have helped the team at Nature's Way. When we were introduced to Sarah and her team, they were wasting time chasing down suppliers for many of the most basic documents. It was difficult and time-consuming for them to get exactly what they needed and to close the loop with suppliers so that the quality teams could actually do some meaningful work. This meant they spent way too much time manually filling information gaps. With the addition of Supplier Management, Nature's Way now has a single platform to organize supplier communications and documents. And thanks to TraceGains Network, from day one, they were given access to their suppliers who were ready to engage and connect to provide the documents they needed. TraceGains was able to foster collaboration with their suppliers, which helped them save time on both sides. We spoke with Sarah Hazard, Supply Quality Manager at Nature's Way. She explained that within the first 30 days, they were able to source a large project through Market Hub and complete their qualification activities. What used to take upwards of 6 months now takes only a few days, and they're definitely seeing some quick wins from the sourcing side of things using Market Hub. So if you're spending months trying to identify the right ingredients to source through your supply chain, you too may be able to see similar benefits as Nature's Way. At this point in our presentation, I'll bring in Ruben Galbraith, our software sales engineer, to provide a demonstration covering many of the scenarios we've spoken about today.
So where I'm going to start us today is within Market Hub. This is the place where suppliers, manufacturers, brands, distributors, brokers are communicating back and forth on a standardized set of information that TraceGains has been dictating. And what I'm going to do today is give a couple examples. What would it be like to find a new supplier in here and vet them right here on the spot? What would it be like to search for an ingredient that you don't have in hand right now? How could you filter down and find a really good vendor for that? But before I hop into this search, I like to show off some of the stats that are driving this network. I mean, no one would sign on to LinkedIn if their coworkers and professionals in their same industry weren't there. You wouldn't sign on to Facebook if your friends weren't there. And that's why I say, why would you sign on to a network if the different ingredients and suppliers you work with aren't there? I got a chart right here, the one in the center of the screen, that shows off the growth rate, which has been stunning, for the number of items or ingredients, those are synonyms in our world, that are in TraceGains. And as you can see, we just keep hitting kind of milestones left and right. I was excited a couple months ago when we hit 200,000 items. That was back in September. And then just in the last week, we hit a 225,000 number. So it's that many ingredients people are really communicating on through our system. Same story is true for the number of suppliers that have joined the network and the number of their various locations that they've documented. That's another one where we hit a neat spot, or I think we will next week. We're going to have 10,000 different suppliers spanning, I think, 105 different countries in our system. All right, enough of that background stuff. Let's do some actual work here in Market Hub. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of somebody who needs to be vetting a new supplier. It's somebody that they've heard of, maybe they met them at a trade show, but they don't want to go through that rigmarole of having to communicate with them over and over again to collect up the set of 10, 15 documents they need to vet that supplier. So I'll pick on one that has an apt name in this situation, High Quality Organics. I type in their name, toggle over to the Suppliers tab, and of course they bubble up to the top. Other folks that have organics or higher quality in their name are also in there as well. If you need to do any narrowing down, if you didn't know the supplier you were looking for, you might also have your eyes be wandering over to these various filters. You could look for suppliers within a certain distance of you, ones that are FDA registered, ones that have filled out certain documents, maybe even map them out globally and see which ones are going to be convenient based off of certain trucking routes. But for today's example, let's dive into the High Quality Organics profile and see what's going on here. So this company, they probably were invited by one of TraceGains manufacturers. They went in, started to fill in some information, and have done an awesome job kind of fleshing out their entire catalog and really documenting their entire business within TraceGains. And that's what we're seeing here above the fold. We see the fact that they have 300 plus different ingredients in TraceGains. We'll look at those in a minute. Just below, we have a little listing of their locations. They have documents for their corporate headquarters and also for their Reno manufacturing facility, which is indeed FDA registered, and there's that number. Scrolling down just a notch more, we have a list of contacts. And this is kind of particularly interesting. Like, imagine you need to get a document from a company and you dial into their main phone line and have to make your way through a phone tree. We get rid of that. We have suppliers kind of opt into different alerts so that the document folks, Ryan, Brett, Joni, and Chad, are being notified of the right things. So that the right person is being notified when you ask for a sample through our system. We kind of just route that communication to save everyone another step. All right, getting down a little lower in the page is the last part of the profile I wanted to show off, and it really is the most important part if you ask me. So this company here, High Quality Organics, for their Reno manufacturing facility, has uploaded into TraceGains in advance of you ever working with them. What do we got here? 3 columns, 6 rows, 2 extra docs. I guess that equals 20. 20 different pieces of documentation that speak to their business. And if your eyes are wandering around through these rows, you're probably seeing the types of things you want to collect. You also might be noticing that these documents have this handy little icon, meaning they're instantly accessible. You can download it right here and take a preview of their third-party audit cert. You might also notice that the supplier has set an effective date and an expiration date, almost all of which are in 2020, if not even beyond. That lets you know that in the future, let's say come around June and July of 2020, it's going to be TraceGains pinging this company saying, put in your new audit certificate, and via our post-once technology, we're going to blast that out to the 20 different folks you're working with in the system. Everyone's saving time. Now there's just one more document I want to show off because it's going to lead into the rest of our demo. I'm going to click on our supplier questionnaire doc. This is one that's been evolving over time. It's about 6 pages long. Every quarter we query our customer advisory board and see if we need new questions. And it really has evolved to be everything under the sun that people want to know about a supplier before we work with them. It's things like, are they FDA registered? There's that FDA registration number. As I scroll down here, we see things about the different safety protocols they follow, which staff they have, who's their emergency contact, if they've had recalls, etc. Now you may be thinking, this still kind of looks like a static PDF. In fact, if you're looking up here at the bar, you see that it is a PDF. But I want you to keep in mind, because in just about 3 minutes, I'm going to show how each of these are actual data points, which become very useful in our supplier management module. Now just a little bit more of Market Hub before I leave this area. As I said before, we could also do the same type of querying looking at the different ingredients that are supplied by high-quality organics. But for demo's sake, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to remove that filter and pretend that we're searching for a brand new ingredient, and I'll do one of my favorite examples of garlic. I search for that, and I find that there's 2,900 of that 225,000 different items in TraceGains that mention the word garlic. So, geez, this is still about as good as a Google search. You don't want to go through all these pages. Here's how we can help you out. So I'll do some more pretend examples here. Let's say you're making a product and you really care about which allergens are going to be present. You're going to be making all these claims about allergen-free. Maybe you want to sort this list to only show off suppliers that have filled in the TraceGains allergen form, about half of them. Scroll down a little bit more. Let's say you want the ingredient to be organic. I'll check off that box, one of many attributes you can sort by. All right, now we're down to 57. This is being more manageable. Last but not least, let's say you want a powdered version of garlic. It's going to work well within your machinery. Let's search for that. And all of a sudden, we're down to 6 different really interesting results. I'll just click into this one here, found sentient natural ingredients. Right on the fly, I could ask for a sample or even tell a colleague about this. But let's just do the basic preview. We see a really similar view to what we had a moment ago. A listing of, let's see, this time 3 columns by 5 rows, 15 documents that are here in the system and up to date about this ingredient. If you decide to make a connection to them, almost think of this as like a Facebook friend request, you would instantly download all 15 or whatever subset of these documents you want and have them land in your version of Supplier Management, which is the remainder of these tabs over here. And just for fun demo's sake, since it'll come into play later, I'll do a little preview of our allergen statement, which is yet another of the TraceGains standardized forms. You can see our logo up there, where we essentially have listed out all the different allergens and sensitive agents that people in our customer base wanted to know about. So here we start off with the North American falco ones. We get into other continents, other types of agents. It just goes on for about 2 pages. Yes, no's, maybe and C manufacturing plant. All right, so I'm about to make a leap here from Market Hub into Supplier Management. So keep in mind, all this data is already up in the system. All you need to do is link to it. And the place where you link to it and reap the results of that is over here in Supplier Management. Supplier Management, this module spans kind of a few different tabs, and I'm going to give a little bit of the lay of the land for folks that are not familiar with TraceGains. So I landed immediately in this Suppliers tab, and no shock, within this tab we're looking at information about suppliers. In this case, we're looking at one particular dashboard view, the Supplier Details dashboard, one of a million you could build out, that's showing off particular columns that are relevant at this highest levels. So what are we seeing here? I'll just do one example. Aloe Allowed Phoenix, we're buying 6 ingredients from them, and great, they're on TraceGains, they set up their free account, and we already connected with them. Because we connected with them, we were instantly able to download their documents out of Market Hub, which gave us this nice little indication. We got 100% of the ones we required. And you could set your own requirements, by the way. No 2 companies are alike in how they vet their supply chain. Because of that, this company got toggled over to being approved. That's a really rosy situation, super simple. But I kind of want to follow up on that example of, let's say we found someone in Market Hub that we haven't worked with before. How would we add them into Supplier Management? That's also pretty easy. Your eyes might have already found the button, the new button right up here. I click on that and I say, let's create a new record in our supplier section, and we're going to do it straight out of the TraceGains Network for Market Hub. And since I didn't want to connect with a real company out there and raise their alerts, I'm going to do one that's a mock company. TraceGains, naturally, headquartered in Westminster, Colorado. But in this case, I'm even going to say I know in advance I'm going to be buying ingredients out of their Portland location, which is actually where I'm located today. All right, we're 90% done right there. I click Save, and it created this new record. It just gives me a little head up that I need to add in a new supplier ID, supplier 12345, and I need to assign them to a group. Depending on what type of company they are, you might want to download a different bundle of documents out of Market Hub. I'm just going to say this is a raw material manufacturer, so I can grab that kind of subset of documents. So what happened here? I made this record, but if I go to the bottom of the page, it still says, oh geez, these 6 documents are 100% missing. And the only reason for that is that it takes about 30 seconds, that's why I'm starting to talk a little bit slower, for those documents to get grabbed out of Market Hub and dragged over into your version of Supplier Management. Fingers crossed, I hit refresh here. It's going to reload up the page, and here are those 6 documents that have arrived. I see that I haven't reviewed them yet. They're still awaiting approval. But I do know that they were created and added into our system right here, right now. I see that the expiration date's off to the future. And what most folks end up doing in the system is even setting up a workflow alert that might tell their quality team via an email template that this brand new vendor is ready for approval. All their docs are right here. This could take companies today weeks, if not months. There, I did it in a matter of seconds. All that's really left is for that QA person who has the rights to scroll up to the top of the page and say, yeah, I'm ready to approve this person. Let's start making purchases from them. Now let's take this case a little bit further. I mean, everything I showed here in supplier management so far was around document management, which I did see in the survey was a major concern of everyone out there, no shock. But what can we do that's a little bit more powerful than just storing these documents here? Here's where I'm going to run with that example of a supplier questionnaire PDF. So it still kind of looks like a PDF, right? A little bit lower up in the page, I built in a trace station section that exposes the data from within that form. And here's just what we see. The yes, they're FDA registered, their number, the yes-no answers about their safety culture. Even one that we kind of highlight as being slightly alarming, not necessarily so, but we wanted to know that this company is indeed importing ingredients. Based off of business rules you set up, you can actually then run a risk score that probably took into account the fact that this company is importing ingredients. Not necessarily dangerous, but something you might want to be alerted to. So what we're looking at here is a supplier risk score built off of your own calculation. They only got 5 risk points, and it put them in the low risk category. All right, I'm going to bring this home now with the super use case. Today's Thursday, so picture you got an email during this call, and your VP of quality or your CEO says, Friday, 4 o'clock, we're going to have a meeting, and I want the quality team to rank all 700 of our suppliers top to bottom, most risky to least. That probably causes you some heartburn, because you would say, oh, geez, what criteria are we considering? And even if you knew the criteria, would you have all the data points? And even if you had all the data points, could you build a fancy Excel pivot table to show off that info? Here's how TraceGains folks do that instead. They have a dashboard risk evaluation that has a live tally off of their own scoring system based off of whatever factors they care about, off of data that they automatically had at their fingertips that just ranks their suppliers. Extremely risky, high, medium, low, none. You have this live view just right here on the spot, something that would just take endless work, something that's almost like a Sisyphean task to even get all 18 of these data points into this gigantic table to feed this calculation. All right, so I've been talking about suppliers a lot. I'd be remiss if I didn't do a little more exploring of supplier management. So I'm going to hop over here to the Items Supplied tab and kind of give just an example or two of how data out of Market Hub, again, can slide over into your profile and be really useful in a number of ways. So check this out. Item Supplied table, again, is a table where each row represents an ingredient from a company, an ingredient from a company. And yes, you can track if you get the documents. But what's more valuable is looking at the information in those documents. So almost everyone who uses TraceGains build-outs has sets of dashboards, maybe one that's focused on FALCPA allergens, maybe another one that's based off of international allergens. And they can expose the data out of that allergen form we saw just 5-10 minutes ago and have that be sortable just right here on the fly. Figure out which things have royal jelly within the same manufacturing plant within just a click. Now this data takes a little bit of time to sort through and figure out what I'm seeing. Maybe you want to export this for a meeting. But what's even more valuable is to kind of take the most interesting tidbits of this and expose it in this special reporting area. So here I have a report they built out called Supply Chain Overview. You can summarize everything that's going on with TraceGains for you. You can add charts on the fly and move them around. But picture this. Maybe you want to have a chart that maps out your peanut contamination risk across your company. Maybe you're happy to see that it's 85% don't have peanuts at all. You're working your way to 100. You're a little concerned about the one that has it in the product. Maybe you need to get rid of that. Or maybe you want to dive in and say, all right, which ones have it in the same manufacturing plant? Maybe I can resource aloe vera, find a new version of it that doesn't have it at all, and make my way towards being 100% peanut-free. One last use case, I think, though, before I get over to the Q&A portion. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to look at a different graph that's around the suitability factors, as we call them. It's information pulled off of our suitability form, which has a ton of questions. Is it kosher, or is it organic? Is it halal? Now, here's the use case I like to think of, and I hate to pick on the R&D folks out there, but we know they have the tendency to go from 0 to 60 really fast. They have an idea for a new product. They need an organic ginger. They're going to start formulating on it before consulting with the procurement team, the sourcing team, to say, are we already working with a vendor that can get us this ingredient? Everyone would save a lot of time and headache if they kind of were working in concert. So picture this. Maybe you grant access to your R&D team. You say for that role, they have the rights to look at this tab, maybe only read-only rights. And they could come on in and say, all right, I know I needed an organic version of ginger. Okay, search for the word ginger here. Oh, wow, our quality team has vetted these two ingredients already. I could even hop into this one here for ginger whole plant, look at all of the details that have been plucked off of our standardized forms, or even just jump to the very bottom of the page and see every detail we've collected. Oh, wow, they have a COA here in advance? That's awesome. That's just what I needed to start kind of paper napkining the formula I'm coming up with. So I've given a lot of use cases, and I probably want to bring us to the Q&A portion next, but I want to just drive home that point, that you can't do any of these things if you don't have a system to manage the data, or, on a more important note, have that data be instantly accessible to be dragged on over from MarketHub. And that's really why we're so happy that we've merged these two systems together. It's going to be such a great place to track suppliers, items, and naturally all the documents that back that up. And that's the last place I'll show on the tour. This is really the one remaining task that leaves you up to do daily in TraceGains. You have to hop in, the documents which arrived overnight, and say, awesome, thanks for sending that in. I didn't have to remember it. I didn't have to have that Post-it note sitting on my desk yelling at me in bright yellow.
Thank you, Ruben. In today's presentation, you learned how supplier management with MarketHub from TraceGains gives companies a centralized repository from which to store all supply chain information in a single location. You saw how a robust supplier qualification process can provide clarity and visibility into the compliance status for all of your suppliers and their items. With configurable dashboarding and reporting, you can extract data from documents and obtain valuable business insights you've never had before. And with everything tracked digitally, you and your suppliers are always audit ready. And with MarketHub, the sum total of your entire supply chain is right at your fingertips, just waiting for you to start sourcing inquiries. Because supplier management with MarketHub from TraceGains provides immediate access to all of your required documentation, you can spend more time working and less time searching to bring your products to market faster. On behalf of myself, Ruben, and everyone else here at TraceGains, I'd like to thank you for your time, and now we'll open up the conference for questions. All right, Ruben, our first question is, what does it take to set up a profile in MarketHub?
Not much at all. So I'm pretty sure you can actually head over to the TraceGains website and go and start to register your company out of the blue. We do a very small amount of vetting, of course, in there to make sure you're a legit person, your email address aligns with that company. But we greatly encourage folks to, out of their own volition, set up profiles, start to list their ingredients, just for that use case I was showing so that you can be found. The only little color I'll add on there is that the vast majority of folks who have profiles in TraceGains got there because they were invited by one of their manufacturers. So you might have those emails in your inbox right now saying, my brand I'm selling to is using this. Come in, set up your free profile. You could also follow that link and start setting it up.
Our next question is from Pamela. Pamela wants to know when this solution will be available.
Pretty sure the answer on that one is right now. So we've made the merge. Before we used to sell the two modules a little bit separately, but from here on out, we're selling them as a combo because that's how they work.
Ruben, our next question is, do only paying customers have access to Market Hub?
Yes, absolutely. And there's kind of like a little bit of deeper color in that answer. So no one can just go to the TraceGains website and start searching Market Hub. And even once you're within Market Hub, so only access to people who are licensing TraceGains, suppliers still have some really fine-grained controls of what they expose. Some people want to make everything public. Some people want to hide certain items because they're totally unique, or maybe because they have an exclusive sales relationship with a company. They can also even decide which documents they want to have instantly available, like we saw in that download, and which ones they want to say, yeah, it's available, but you have to connect with me, be my friend, so to speak, before you can download it. So yeah.
Ruben, how do we find out how many of our suppliers are in TraceGains Network?
I am very happy this question got answered. This is an activity we love to do with our prospects. So working with one of our account executives, our AEs, we love to get a supplier list from you, and of course we can sign confidentiality agreements first. And then we have a tool where we can compare that list of 10, 50, maybe it's even 1,000 suppliers against the network. And we are not shocked at all when the number of matches is like 70, 80%. I've seen ones where it's 90% in the baking industry, rarely lower than 50%. So I guess the answer on that one is we'll follow up with you. I think I see your name on this Q&A, and we can kind of get that conversation going. So we'd love to do that.
For our next question, someone is asking, if we purchase Supplier Management, how many people can use it?
As many as you want. So we don't do any pricing based off of users because our product becomes the most useful when people invite everyone from their company, or at least all the key folks, to use it. So we don't do any charging based off of that at all. We even give you administrative rights to go on in and add as many users as you want from within your own company.
Ruben, is there a cost to suppliers?
Our network would not succeed if it wasn't free 100% of the time, now and into the future for suppliers. We absolutely don't want to charge them, and they wouldn't use it if it cost them something. And you're right, there are solutions out there that do charge suppliers to communicate with the folks they're trying to sell to, which seems a little silly to me.
Amy has a question. Amy, thanks for being with us today. Her question is, are suppliers only for raw materials, or can it be for packaged goods and equipment as well?
Yes, it can be for all of the above. The packaging materials, most certainly. I don't know what percentage of that, like 200,000 is packaging, but I would almost guess 25%. It's a little bit less so for actual equipment type vendors. That's not a huge area of our network, but raw materials and packaging pieces, absolutely.
Our next question is, how do I get my suppliers to create a Market Hub profile if I'm working with our quality management department, but I need their sales and marketing teams to list their catalog?
Yeah. That's a great question. And we actually do have some tools within the supplier side, which we didn't show today, where the first user that gets in there can actually invite their coworkers and kind of give them the responsibility of filling in the catalog. I do believe we have some like webinars, maybe even ones that we recorded on that topic somewhere stored within the TraceGains site, but it's just the type of use case that we want to be occurring. And we know that different roles from the suppliers will be using that free kind of portal in different ways. So I guess I don't have a visual on that one, but it's something we could follow up with you on and maybe even set up a training for any suppliers that are having issues with it.
Ruben, can we create our own templates and questionnaires and not rely upon TraceGains?
Yeah, there's a two-part question on that. The first answer is yes. There's always going to be something custom out there, and you could do it in two ways. You could ask for a totally unique document that we've never thought of, or you could add what we call an addendum onto one of our questionnaires. But kind of the second half answer to that, the color part of it, is that has become rarer and rarer. So I mentioned very briefly we have a customer advisory board that's always revising our forms. So as it's evolved literally over 10 plus years now, it's becoming pretty odd to find someone who has a unique question. And when they do have a unique one, we often add it into our standard form because it's a great idea. Maybe it's a really future forward-looking company. So answer is yes, but pretty rare.
Robert's on the line with us. He'd like to know if the supplier risk section will cover financials at all.
As with all my answers, I kind of give two parts on each of these. One of them is, you probably noticed in Market Hub, there wasn't much like pricing or costing or financial information in there. So no, that isn't really something that we kind of collect up from suppliers. But if you want to track on that, you can absolutely configure your version of TraceGains to have a field for each supplier that says, or what's the costing on this? Is it one of our better costing people, or is it a pricier company? You could build a custom attribute like that and then even have it work into that risk section. Some people use data like that to build out even a scorecard that gets blasted out to their suppliers that says, you're this level of risk and we think you're this good of a value point. What are you going to do for me in 2020? So there you go.
Ruben, do you know if there's an additional cost to build custom templates?
No, it does not. As long as you're getting our Supplier Management Enterprise product, which is really the only version of Supplier Management we sell, it comes with the ability to configure it right up front. And we actually have a really nice system for this. Sometimes even before a contract is signed, we get people filling out a workbook that lists exactly what info they want to record for which type of company, so that on day one, it's just uploaded into the system and they can just dive on in and start using it. So no extra cost to build out customized questions and whatnot. And I think we got that question twice there. The only thing I'd kind of say in there, we say customize is one of the words in that question. We always call it configuration because we want to put all these tools in your fingertips to do. There's hardly a custom line of code we've ever written for any of our hundreds of customers. So we want everything to be adjustable from right here within the interface. So all these configurable things I've been saying you can do at no additional cost.
Pam would like to ask, I'm not showing a section from Market Hub under my profile. How do we do that?
Oh my goodness, we got to get that turned on for you then. I'm actually not sure if that's on your side where you have an administrative control to toggle that on or if it's on ours, but that's something we should definitely follow up on. So I hope Caleb can copy down your name and we can get your CSM to reach out. I'm almost sure it's just a tiny little switch that we need to toggle on for you.
At this time, we have no further questions. So before we leave, I'd just like to remind everyone that we have a new podcast out now with our CEO, Gary Nowacki. It's called C2C, or Conception to Consumption. And in this podcast, Gary speaks with thought leaders and industry leaders on the food, beverage, and consumer packaged goods industries about new product development and industry trends. You can find this podcast in any streaming service of your choice. From all of us at TraceGains, I'd like to thank you and have a nice day.